Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the Core Pick live stream for today. Typically do a pre-recorded video in the morning so everybody can see it, but had a couple of different things that I had to take care of this morning. So here we are with the live stream for today. So mainly going to be going through the injuries in play for tonight's main slate. Is a 9-game main slate overall, and then the core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for tonight. Typically, I go over a little bit of a recap of yesterday's picks. Kind of a little bit kind of a little bit hit or miss yesterday in terms of the core picks. Could have been a little bit better. Some of that Milwaukee value didn't really turn out as we kind of hoped for. If you had Drew Holiday, if you had Javon Carter, it went pretty well, but the rest of the guys didn't really do too much overall. But you're going to have that sometimes in NBA DFS. But without further ado, we'll get started with some of these injuries in play for tonight's slate. Once again, it is a 9-game main slate. There are 3 games tipping off right at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So we should get a lot of news at least early on tonight's slate. For the Pelicans, they're without Brandon Ingram, EJ Liddell, and Zion Williamson once again. So pretty similar to what we've seen in recent games. Herb Jones is questionable. He's dealing with a back injury. I believe it was actually a back contusion, which shouldn't impact him too much. Still probably not a guy that I'd want to play overall tonight. But if he doesn't end up playing, Dyson Daniels could get that start once again and look like an interesting kind of GPP paydown option on both sites. For the Detroit Pistons, they are without Marvin Bagley, Jalen Duran, and Corey Joseph tonight. So Corey Joseph's the new one that popped up this morning. Isaiah Stewart is listed as questionable. We'll see if he plays or not. He's been dealing with a shoulder issue. If he plays, he's going to look pretty good on DraftKings. He's a reasonable play on FanDuel as well at $6,000 with power forward and center eligibility overall. Buddy Boeheim is still listed as game time decision questionable, but he was recently called up from the G League. Not really a major part of the rotation either way. For the Atlanta Hawks, Clint Capella is out once again. I believe this is Tyrese Martin. I believe he must have been called up from the G League as well. He's questionable at this point in time, but not really too concerned about him. Probably will not be in the rotation either way. But before I get rambling on too long here, if anybody does have any questions regarding tonight's slate, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll answer them as quickly as possible. If you're watching on the live stream, if you're watching on replay, leave them down in the comments and I'll answer as quickly as possible down there as well. But then we move over to the Then we move over to the Pacers with Kendall Brown, Daniel Tice both out once again. Tyrese Halliburton is out. He's expected to miss 2 weeks at this point in time, or at least miss 2 weeks and be reevaluated at that point in time. So we're going to get some value opening up on this Pacers team overall. TJ McConnell and Aaron Nemhard are both going to look pretty good. Andrew Nemhard, excuse me. And Buddy Hield's going to get a little bit of a boost as well, just being in that starting lineup, getting a couple extra shots as well. We got Aaron Nesmith questionable once again. Miles Turner, who was scratched late or right before tip-off last time out, is also questionable. If they don't play, Jalen Smith's probably going to get some extra minutes. O'Shea Brissett is also questionable tonight, and I believe he's dealing with a hamstring injury. We'll see if he plays or not. For the Knicks, they're all the way healthy at this point in time. The Wizards have a plethora of injuries once again, or at least guys that are questionable at this point in time. So we know Bradley Beal is out. We know Vernon Carey is out as well. Johnny Davis listed as questionable, mainly been with G League this year. Probably doesn't factor into a rotation either way. Daniel Gafford, Kristaps Porzingis both missed last time out. Gafford dealing with an ankle injury. Porzingis dealing with a rib injury. We'll see if they play tonight or not. Obviously, since it's one of the first games that's going to lock, we'll have that news sooner rather than later. Last time we saw Denny Avdija and Taj Gibson both start in their place. Thought Rui Hachimura would play that kind of backup center role, but it ended up being Anthony Gill, unfortunately, for whatever reason. So he had a decent game. He's a GPP down option. Denny Avdija has a GPP play if you want to go there. Same thing with Rui Hachimura, especially if these guys end up missing. Denny Avdija actually grabbed 12 boards last game as well. And then we have Monty Morris listed as questionable to play. I believe he's dealing with a hamstring injury. I really don't expect him to play tonight, if I'm being completely honest. So DeLon Wright and Jordan Goodwin both going to look like GPP pay down options on both sides tonight. Obviously looking a little bit better on the DraftKings side, though. Then we move over to the Golden State Warriors. JaMychal Green, Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman all out once again. Not really too much to change there for the Warriors team. They are pretty much as healthy as they're going to get for this point in time. They have all their starters back. All these guys are priced pretty appropriately, so not really interested in them like from a very, very big DFS standpoint, but if you want to mix and match them in some lineups, don't have a problem with that tonight. Spurs just missing Devin Vassell, who had his knee surgery. Otherwise, they are healthy. They got Keldon Johnson back last time. He looked pretty good. Trey Jones has been playing pretty well as well. Jakob Poeltl, if you want to go there, if you think this game stays competitive, could be an interesting piece as well. Then we move down to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are on a back-to-back tonight. Just keep that in mind. Yusheng Dang Alexei Povesevsky and Jerome Robinson Earl all out once again. We'll see what they do at that center position. They've been starting a plethora of different guys there. They have Omen Yuri projected in for whatever reason, and he didn't even play the guys that got the center minutes yesterday. Jalen Williams got the start against Joel Embiid. Saw some Mike Muscala, saw some Darius Baisley. Those split the 48 minutes. We've seen Kenrich Williams start at the center position. We've seen Mike Muscala, Jalen Williams, the center. Omen Yuri, Darius Baisley, you name it. We've seen enough guys start different at that center position overall. Matchup against Vucevic is a little bit interesting one, but he's a little bit of a softer center, a guy that's willing to shoot and not really your traditional grind you down in the paint or anything else like that. Let's see. So Gabriel here, yes, man, Keldon Johnson, or I'm not sure what the or is at this point in time. Let's see. McConnell. Okay. So I feel like this for me is going to be pretty easy. We're just waiting on it to pop up there. So we have man, Keldon Johnson, Mathurin, or TJ McConnell, Buddy Hield, and Gordon. I'm going to assume that's Aaron Gordon. So for me, this answer is going to be a little biased because as we get into it with my core picks, TJ McConnell, Buddy Hield, and Aaron Gordon are all in my core picks. So I would lean that side, assuming this is DraftKings too. If it's on FanDuel, pretty similar either way, though. Man looks a little bit better, I think, on the FanDuel side, just with the versatility that he has on there, where he's shooting guard and small forward as opposed to point guard, shooting guard, even though he's been playing point guard essentially at forward. But I would go with McConnell, Hield, and Gordon side myself personally. But I do like both sides there. I'm not really against either one. So if you're playing multiple lineups, would not have a problem with playing both of those. Let's see where we were at. The Chicago Bulls, Javonte Green, Tony Bradley, Lonzo Ball all out. Once again, DeMar DeRozan's doubtful. Zach LaVine is probable tonight. So DeRozan unlikely to play once again. Zach LaVine benefit, but he does have a right hand contusion at this point in time. So that's just something we have to keep in mind as we're building our lineups out. His price tag obviously went up. So there is a little bit more risk there than there would be before, but it sounds like he's going to play through. It shouldn't be a major issue, but at the same time, it could affect his shooting as well. So maybe you play a little bit more Vucevic tonight. Maybe you take some shots on like a Kobe White and Alex Caruso, somebody like that. You can definitely do that on the Bulls team overall. Even Derrick Jones Jr. is not a terrible GPP pay down option if you really want to go there. For the Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker, Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson, Chris Paul, Cameron Payne, and Landry Shamet all out once again. At least we had all this news early today. Sounds like DeAndre Ayton is going to be able to go tonight, or at least he expects to play. So that's something to keep in mind. He's very interesting in GPPs. I'm not going out of my way to play him in like a cash lineup or a single entry or anything else like that. But when you're playing multiple entries, like 3 or more, 20 max, 50 max, 150 max, anything like that, you should have some exposure to him tonight. Not the greatest matchup in the world against Rudy Gobert, but at the same time, you're talking about a Phoenix team that's very depleted. Somebody has to take shots on this team. And the way Dwayne Washington was shooting the last time, probably don't want it to be him. So he's 3 for 14. Let's see. We got Patrick up in here too. I see Gabriel did say thanks. That's not a problem at all. And with Patrick here, how am I doing? I'm doing pretty good so far today. It's been a little bit of a busy day, but thoughts on Fox tonight. Fox looks pretty good. They are going against Houston Rockets. The only concern you have is a little bit of blowout since they did blow them out by 20 points last time out. Fox was in my core play the last time these two teams played. And, he got to 41.6 points. It was on FanDuel. So he was like just shy where I gave him a push, but he did lose out on about 4 or 5 minutes in that game. If the game's competitive tonight, he's going to look even better. If he's not super competitive, there is a little bit of risk there as well. Obviously, Kevin Porter Jr. is not playing tonight for Houston, so could make a little bit of impact over there, but he did get hurt that last game, and he did miss most of that game, at least 2 as well. Let's see where we were at in these injuries. The Timberwolves are going to be a pretty big tonight where there could be some potential value. Karl Anthony Towns, Jordan McLaughlin, both out once again. Anthony Edwards is questionable. He left that last game with his hip injury. Kyle Anderson, he missed the last game with an illness. Would expect that he's back tonight, though. And then Torian Prince also listed as questionable. Just kind of have to see how these injuries shake out overall today. There could be a little bit of value there, or it could just be nothing for this Timberwolves team overall. And Anthony Edwards is not a bad GPP option tonight if he ends up playing. But there is some risk, even if he ends up playing like we saw the last time, that he might go out there and just play 19 minutes like he did the last time, and then his hips bothering him again too. So if I'm playing guys from Timberwolves, it's probably going to be a little bit of Rudy Gobert and GPPs, probably a little bit of D'Angelo Russell, maybe mix and match some other guys here and there if I'm playing, like 20 max or 150 max or anything else like that. Not sure that's going to be the case tonight. Probably going to be more of a 3 max night for me personally, though, which I kind of try to do on Fridays because typically they're the bigger slates, but tonight's a little bit smaller than your typical Friday as well. For the Orlando Magic, they are without Chuma Okeke. Jalen Suggs is questionable to play tonight. If he doesn't end up playing, then obviously Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony going to look a little bit better. Fultz's minutes have been a little bit more solidified as of late. In the Magic team, if I'm playing anybody from this Magic team tonight, it's mainly Wendell Carter. He looks decent on both sides as well. And then for the Utah Jazz, they do get Colin Sexton back tonight off the bench, so that's going to be an impact. We did see Malik Beasley start the last game. We'll see if he does that again today or not. He could be interesting if he ends up starting. If he doesn't, then he's kind of just a big old wild card, especially with Colin Sexton being back overall. Then down here, we still have Kelly Olynyk out. Talen Horton-Tucker is questionable to play. He's missed like the last 3 games. Bolmaro is also questionable. I believe he's dealing with an illness. And then Udoka Azubuike is dealing with COVID, or he's coming back from the COVID list. I believe it is. So he's probably going to need to work on his conditioning and everything else like that. Probably not a major part of the rotation either way, though. I'm going to take a drink of water here real quick, but we're going to get to the Nuggets, who are going to be a pretty interesting piece on tonight's slate overall. So for this Nuggets team, like the big news that we got earlier today is Nikola Jokic was unlikely to play. He's been ruled out now. Peyton Watson, Jeff Green, Colin Gillespie all out as well. We got Bruce Brown and Jamal Murray listed as game time decisions, but expected to play, probable to play tonight. Mike Malone, their head coach, said Jamal Murray will play tonight, I believe yesterday. And Jamal Murray rolled his ankle the last time out. Missed the entire fourth quarter. Otherwise, he probably would have been an even better play on that slate. Looks pretty good on DraftKings. FanDuel, he's a little bit priced up more, so GPP option over there. Michael Porter's reasonably priced on both sides. He could have some upside with no Jokic tonight, but sometimes in the spots when you think Michael Porter Jr. is going to do a little extra, he doesn't always do it. Aaron Gordon looks pretty good as well. Might get some couple extra rebounds, be a little bit more involved passing-wise, running the offense as well, especially on the times that Jamal Murray is not out there on the court. So Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, them be the two that I like quite a bit tonight overall. And then you can take some shots at the center position if you really want to do so. GPP paydown options, DeAndre Jordan and Zeke Naji. It just kind of depends on who starts tonight. That's probably be the one that I attack, and probably most people attack overall as well. But it is one of the later games. It's the 10 o'clock Eastern game, and there's only 2 at that time slot. So not sure how people are going to approach that overall, but I'd be willing to take some shots there. Zeke Naji has been a little bit better this year in the times that he's got an extended run. Obviously, DeAndre Jordan can grab a ton of rebounds and be pretty active that way if he starts and gets some minutes, but hasn't really been a major part of the rotation as of late. So I probably tend to lean a little bit more towards Zeke Naji overall. We'll just have to see how that all plays out. Clippers side, we got Paul George and Luke Kennard out once again. You can take some shots on Terrence Mann tonight. You can take Kawhi Leonard's really priced up at this point in time. If you want to go there, you can, but it's probably more of a GPP thing. Morris is reasonably priced on both sides. Zubac is priced reasonably on both sides. If he gets the minutes tonight, he's going to look pretty good, but he's just a GPP option overall. If he gets run off the court, then that's just kind of a story for a different day. Last time out, we saw Robert Covington play a lot of minutes, but they're not really guaranteed. If you want to use him as a GPP paydown option on either side, you can definitely do that, though. Then we move over to the Houston Rockets. Kevin Porter Jr. is out tonight. We'll see Jalen Green start as the point guard. Not really the point guard. He'll have the ball in his hand a lot, but the guy that's probably going to benefit the most in terms of assist with no Kevin Porter Jr., Eric Gordon, and Alfred Sengun, who was a triple-double last time out. So those would be the two primary beneficiaries in terms of assist rate. Jalen Green, mainly a scorer, but he'll have more opportunities to score tonight as well. So he's definitely interesting. He looks a little bit better on FanDuel since he's $7,000 there versus $7,600 on DraftKings. You can definitely play him on both sides, but he's not a lock by any means at the same time. Eric Gordon is a GPP paydown option on both sides. His usage rate actually doubles with no Kevin Porter Jr. on the court, but then when he's out there on the court with Jalen Green at the same time, it goes down to about just over 20% at the same time. KJ Martin Jr., KJ Martin or Kenyon Martin Jr., however you like to refer to him as, probably will start in that starting lineup, small forward, power forward, whatever you want to call him on tonight's slate. 28 minutes, 27 minutes. We could see like a Jayshawn Tate sneak up in here and start, but they really haven't been ramping his minutes up. I wouldn't expect that, but KJ Martin paid on option on both sides. If he gets 28 minutes, he's probably going to get you about 21, 22 fantasy points tonight overall. Jabari Smith, you know what you're getting out of him on both sides. Maybe he gets a couple extra shots with no Kevin Porter Jr. out there in the court. And then Sengun, if he plays like the way he did last time, he's going to look pretty good overall. Decent GPP play on both sides. And then for the Kings, De'Aaron Fox, bonus, you can play them on both sites. Sabonis looks better on FanDuel. Fox looks decent on both sites. Kevin Huerter, if he plays tonight, he's questionable. Not really interested in him. Harrison Barnes or Keegan Murray. But if Kevin Huerter doesn't play, Terrence Davis becomes a GPP paid on option, assuming that he starts once again. And then Malik Monk would just kind of be a GPP option overall. But that's kind of a brief rundown on all the injuries in play for tonight's slate. A few that we'll be watching throughout the night, but a lot of the news we should have at least early on to help us out as we're building lineups, as we're getting closer to lock. As always, I'll be listing the injury updates throughout the day and as we get them for the most part of the night, as well as the starting lineups down in the comments below. So definitely be sure to check that out, especially as we get closer to lock. I'll have my updated core there about 20 to 30 minutes prior to lock as well. But with that being said, we'll get rid of the injuries for this point in time. Go over to DraftKings, talk about some core picks that I have for today. There's a little bit of room and flexibility today overall when it comes to core picks. These are just the guys that kind of stood out for me by position basis. Doesn't mean that you have to have all these guys in your lineup together. But at point guard, went with TJ McConnell. He's $4,100, looking for 21 points out. He's averaging 16 on the season. But the big thing is he really just hasn't played that much this year with Tyrese Haliburton out there on the court. Haliburton's gone for 2 weeks, essentially. At this point in time, TJ McConnell is a decent fantasy point per minute producer. If he's in the starting lineup, he's going to look really good. If he comes off the bench, he still has a chance to play 24 to 26 minutes and give you about 26 points. So right now, I do have him projected for about 26 points, $4,100. Definitely a pretty good value there. Does have some upside for more as well. Kind of sneaky on FanDuel too, because he'll have those random like 5 or 6 steal games every once in a while, which you don't really expect from a guy like TJ McConnell, but he's a good passer. He gets some steals. He can score a little bit, not too much overall though, but mainly assists and steals are going to be the name of his game, but still a pretty good fantasy point per minute guy. Then at shooting guard, I went with Buddy Hield. He is $6,500 on the DraftKings side. You're looking for 32 points. He's been doing reasonably well as of late, 40 points. 40 plus points out the last time. Goes against Atlanta. It's a reasonable matchup as well. Should be a pretty back and forth game as long as the Pacers are able to hang with Indiana overall. But going to be a guy that's going to get a shot more often than not tonight. Currently having projected for about 35 points. Does have some upside for more as well. KJ Martin, Kenyon Martin Jr., we already talked enough about him, but $3,800, looking for 19 out. He's averaging 20 already on the season. Good matchup against the Kings as well tonight. Should play 28 minutes, get you 21 to 22 fantasy points tonight. Pretty good value overall. And then at power forward, we have Aaron Gordon. He is $6,200. Looking for 31 points out. He's averaging already 32 on the season. So he's already looking good. There's no Jokic tonight, so he should be more involved in the offense. Get a couple extra rebounds. Currently having projected for 34 points. Has some upside for more as well. And then last but not least, at the center position, I went with Jonas Valanciunas at $6,500. Goes against the Pistons tonight. Should be a favorable matchup, whether it's Isaiah Stewart and Nerlens Noel out there at the center position. Maybe the thing you would be worried about is if Stewart doesn't play tonight, then maybe you get off of Valanciunas a little bit, just because Nerlens Noel has really only played about 21, 22 minutes in the games that he started, and they really haven't had anybody behind him. They kind of go smaller, then maybe the Pelicans go smaller too, with like a Jackson Hayes or a Larry Nance at that center position, which would kind of not be good for Jonas Valanciunas overall, obviously. But he's been one of their best players as of late for the Pelicans and been one of their better scorers. So do like him quite a bit tonight. Have him projected for 35 points, but that's, excuse me. But if you were to go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, just under $2,300, just over $7,600 per player. So a good little mix there. If you want to pay up for somebody, you can definitely do it. There's not like that top end guy to pay up for tonight since Jokic got ruled out. Sabonis and Curry, both kind of banged up at this point in time, or Curry's coming off injury, Sabonis is injured, so I'm not really too interested in them. Julius Randle's a little bit overpriced. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's not too bad, but it's on the back-to-back. So you kind of get this big lump here, and then it's kind of pick and choose who you want. I wouldn't mind going to like a CJ McCollum at $9,400. De'Aaron Fox is there at $9,000. Don't mind him at all either. Zach LaVine's $9,200 if you really want to go there. A couple different options that you can choose from. Vucevic was a guy that's been really popping in my lineups as I've been doing some projections today and doing some simulations for lineups. So he's somebody that's pretty interesting. I like it a little bit more of him than LaVine because he's cheaper priced, and LaVine's a little bit banged up too, just in case something happens with that. But the rest of the field's probably going to be thinking the same way as well. So that's just something to consider as we get there. So let me go over to FanDuel, and we'll talk about some core picks over there as well. You'll see a lot of similarities, at least for the 5 guys that I did pick. There's a little bit of difference, but it is just something to keep in mind. And some days you'll have that between both sites, and some days it'll be completely different just because the pricing is so different on both sites on some certain days. So on the FanDuel side, at point guard, I went with D'Angelo Russell. $6,900. You're looking for 34, 35 points. If Anthony Edwards doesn't play tonight, he's going to look pretty good overall. Pretty easy matchup against the Phoenix Suns, who are very depleted at this point in time. The way the Timberwolves have been playing, this is probably going to end up being a competitive game as well. Currently have Russell projected for 35, 36 points. So pretty reasonable play, has some upside for more. He's been down a little bit as of late. If you want to play like a Jalen Green here, you could definitely do that as well for $100 more, who is also eligible at both point guard and shooting guard. Then at shooting guard, I went with Buddy Hield at $6,700, looking for 33, 34 fantasy points. A lot of the talking points are similar to the DraftKings side. Obviously, there's no Halliburton tonight. Might get a couple extra shots, a little bit more usage on this team overall. Going to look pretty good. Definitely the high end upside with him. Currently, I'm projected for 34, 35 fantasy points tonight. At small forward, we have Kenyon Martin Jr., KJ Martin. Even between the two different sites, it's funny how he's Kenyon Martin on DraftKings or on FanDuel and KJ Martin on DraftKings. So he's $3,900, so $100 more than he is on DraftKings. Looking for 19, 20 points out. He's averaging that essentially on the season. Same thing I said on DraftKings. Goes against Sacramento tonight. Pretty favorable matchup. Should play 28 minutes. Like, unless he's just not in that starting lineup, he's going to look pretty good tonight. And even if he's not in the starting lineup, doesn't look terrible either, but probably would not be a core play in that case. But at power forward, we're going to go with Aaron Gordon. Once again, $6,400, looking for 32 fantasy points out. He's averaging just under that on the season. No Nikola Jokic once again tonight. Should be more involved in the offense to get some extra rebounds as well. So he's going to look pretty good overall, and currently have him projected for 34 points once again. If he's active on the defensive end, which he was doing in the steals department for a little while there, has a little bit of higher upside on the FanDuel side as well. And last but not least, at that center position, we went with Alperen Sengun, who is $6,400, looking for 32 fantasy points out. He's averaging just under that on the season. Goes against the Kings tonight. He had triple-double last time out. If he's out there, if he's playing well, if he's staying out of foul trouble, it's going to be a good game for him once again. He's going to be one of the bigger beneficiaries without Kevin Porter Jr. once again tonight. But that's pretty much what I have for NBA DFS at this point in time. If you're listening, if you're out there, if you have any questions regarding NBA DFS specifically, feel free to leave them in the chat as we're still on the live stream. Or if you're watching on replay, leave it down in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer your questions as quickly as possible as well. I know yesterday I did a price pick video as well. So if you watch that, definitely would recommend it. We had 3 different plays that I liked. Jalen Williams fantasy score, Royce O'Neal fantasy score, and Terry Rozier were the 30 ones for the over. I typically like doing flex on price picks. I'm going to bring that up too while I'm talking about it. We'll just take a look over there. I haven't done a lot of research as of yet for today for price picks. So not sure that we're going to get a video on with that for today, but something that I'm in the process of trying to add to the channel as well. If you're interested in prize picks, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's on YouTube or on Twitter at CoachCraigSports, and I'll definitely help you guys along in that process. I can give you guys my code too, that you get a little deposit match when you sign up. You get a little bit of something, I get a little bit of something at the same time. And then the bonus one that I had yesterday was LaMelo Ball fantasy points as well. If you used all 4, 3 out of the 4 hit, and then if you flexed it, you paid out pretty good. If you just used the 3 that I did and flexed it, then you paid out at 1.25%. So that's not the worst in the world, but I do recommend the flex just because you never know what's going to happen at any point in time. We see Anthony over here. He's saying CJ 26 and a half points over. That was one of the ones that I kind of peeked at a little bit earlier today. Typically for me, I like to look at the fantasy scores for Prize Picks just because I do the fantasy point projections on my own every day anyways for the core pick videos and everything else like that. So we can look through a couple of these too. If anybody has any other ones that they do like, feel free to mention them. We can take a look at that as well. But CJ McCollum over 26 and a half points looks pretty decent as he's been doing pretty well as of late. You can also look at his fantasy score as well. Let me see if I can scroll down to that real quick. So obviously we've seen his 42 and a half fantasy points here. The fantasy score methodology, at least for Prize Picks, is the same as FanDuel. So if you're familiar with FanDuel scoring, it'll definitely help you out in Prize Picks terminology as well. But you see that he's gone over the past 3 games. There's a couple games in before that wasn't too good, but he is playing against Detroit tonight. Should be a favorable matchup as well. If you want to take the points over, if you want to take the fantasy score over, don't mind either one of those tonight. These Knicks here, Julius Randle, they're playing Washington tonight, so there is that chance of blowout too, just depending on who plays for Washington. Randall, I have projected a couple points higher, but he's a little bit risky at the same time. Jalen Brunson, I have about a point higher. RJ Barrett's about a point lower. So you'll see some of these lines are pretty tight overall. Quentin Grimes, I have projected for like 24, 25 tonight, but there is a chance that quickly goes out there and he gets hot and Grimes just loses minutes too. So there's a little bit of risk to that. Mitchell Robinson's projected about 28, 29. So he's pretty much in line with that as well. And plus, you always have the risk of foul trouble with him as well, even though we don't know who's going to play particularly for Washington. But let's just say Gafford doesn't play and Porzingis plays center. Not the greatest matchup for Mitchell Robinson in the world at that point in time. CJ McCollum looked fine there. Boyan, pretty much in line with what I have him projected for. Jonas Valanciunas, pretty much in line with what I have him projected for. You have a little bit of ceiling there. But if Isaiah Stewart doesn't play, then you have a lot of risk there as well. Jaden Ivey have projected currently for about 27, 28 points. If he plays 40 minutes again, like he did the last time, this would not be the worst in the world for his overall. We see Anthony here too with Clay at 31 and a half. So Clay's been doing pretty well. You do have some concern though, just with Wiggins and Steph coming back and getting back into their role. So I don't mind Klay Thompson. It wouldn't be one that I go completely out of my way to do, but definitely one you can consider overall. Najee Marshall, I'm not touching at 31 and a half. Yes, he's had some good games lately, but I'm not trusting it. Sadiq Bey, he had the monster game last time, but he's super inconsistent. So not somebody you really want to bet on for Prize Picks. Trey Murphy was down, and then all of a sudden he had the good game once again. So going against the Pistons, probably don't want to test our luck with that. Killian Hayes has had those big games, but he's had some down games as well because he's not the greatest true shooter in the world either. Let's see. Trae Young, obviously he didn't play the last time out. There is some opportunities there. DeAndre Hunter is a guy that I like quite a bit as of late, just because he's been at 25 and a half fantasy score. I believe every game since he's been back, he's hit that except for this one Lakers game here. So don't mind that. Once again, pace up spot against the Pacers. As long as this game stays competitive, he probably hits over on that. John Collins has been doing pretty well as of late as well, but 32 and a half still a reasonable score for him as well. Keldon Johnson, I don't mind 33 and a half for him. He's probably going to get you 34, 35 out of it. But, he just came off that hamstring injury. Yes, he played all the minutes last time, but it doesn't take that much just to tweak your hamstring and have a little bit of risk there too. This is kind of why I'm talking through a lot of this, is kind of the same reasons why I do a lot of flex plays too, as opposed to the power plays. Yes, the power plays can pay out a lot better, but at the same time, you inherit more risk as well. Klay Thompson, 31 and a half, don't mind. Draymond, I don't mind at 27 and a half, but you always have a little bit of risk of foul trouble, rejections with Draymond too, plus a little bit of inconsistency here and there. But 27 and a half is not a terrible number there. They do play against the Spurs, pace up matchup, but potential blowout there as well. So you can even add that back to Klay Thompson. Wiggins, actually 26 and a half is not terrible for Wiggins. He had, I wasn't trying to tap it that way, but he had, I believe, like 33 the last time out. He projects for right around 32, 33 as well. So as long as that game stays competitive, he should look pretty good overall. That wouldn't be one that I'm not crazy, or I wouldn't mind betting on tonight as well. Let's see. Jakob Poeltl, I think, goes over 29 and a half if this game stays competitive, but that's just kind of the big question mark there. Zach LaVine, you can definitely bet on 42 and a half over. without DeRozan, but you do have some concerns there with the hand injury. Josh Giddey is pretty much in line with the projection. Vucevic, there's a little bit of risk there. You could try it if you want. Lou Dort's pretty much in line. Somu, he's been so inconsistent, honestly. Jalen Williams is one I've been using a lot. He's at 23 and a half fantasy points at this point in time. He's pretty much gone over that, I believe. What is it, like the last 9 games? Because it was the last 8 games yesterday, and he did it as well yesterday. So Jalen Williams would be one that I would definitely consider today for the more side. Let's see who else we got here. That stands out. Paulo still, I haven't looked at Paulo. I used Paulo the other day, and he's been 35 and a half. They play Utah tonight. That should be a pretty back and forth pace up matchup. I don't mind doing Paulo Banchero fantasy points over as well. Let's see who else is here. Wendell Carter, I think, is a decent one tonight, but it's still kind of tight on his line as well. And no, he shouldn't get in foul trouble against Utah or anything else like that. Marcus Morris is one that I need to look at lately. He's the one that always kind of pops up. It's like 22 and a half, and it's just like, that should be doable, but Kawhi's still playing tonight. Maybe if Kawhi wasn't playing, then it'd look a little bit better. Terrence Mann, a little bit of risk there. Jalen Green's a little high at this point in time. I don't mind De'Aaron Fox at 41 and a half, but we saw that last time I was 41.9. The time before that was a little bit. These last 2 games have been blowouts. That's kind of been the big thing for him. But with Sabonis being injured, or at least banged up, he hasn't been quite as effective. So that definitely has helped out Fox too. Last game without Herter helped him out a little bit too as well, but it kind of turned into that blowout where he lost some minutes. We got here at this point in time. Jabari Smith is now one that I want to bet on 25 and a half because he's one of those guys that pretty much gets 25 or 26 points every time. So that's pretty tight line there overall. But if I was doing something right now tonight, I'd probably look at Jalen Williams over fantasy score, Paulo Banchero over fantasy score. Maybe we go back to that Andrew Wiggins at 26 and a half. I don't mind that one. A couple different options there tonight, at least, but I haven't dug in quite as much as I would like to on a normal slate. Wasn't trying to click Jakob Poeltl there, but if I'm doing a 3-1 tonight, I'd probably look at Jalen Williams, Paulo Banchero, Andrew Wiggins over the fantasy score. Don't mind DeAndre Hunter there. He was another guy that really stood out when we were kind of going through it before, since he's hit pretty much every time since he's returned from injury outside of the one game. And that's in terms of fantasy score. That's the ones that I like looking at the most. Personally myself, just because I do the fantasy projections every day as well. I don't mind looking at 3-pointers every once in a while too, but you just kind of have to go through some of these and see how they've been doing lately. Like CJ McCollum don't look too bad here. He's at 3.5. He's pretty much hit that every time. He's shooting the ball a little bit better as of late. Najee Marshall we're not touching. Trae Young at 2.5 is not bad, but if he is any signs of like illness or anything like he did the last day, that could affect him overall. DeAndre Hunter, you're not touching there. Clay, not Clay. Steph's all right if you want to go there. Clay, I think his line was lowered this morning, but he's hit this 4 out of the last 5 games. So there's definitely potential for that. Draymond not touching. Why is Josh Richardson popping up now? I don't even know why. Let's see. DeSomo is like a good one for the Hunter because he just doesn't shoot a lot of threes in general. Franz Wagner, he's been shooting a little bit more threes as of late, so that's an interesting one as well. But mainly I like looking at the fantasy scores. If there's anything else that kind of pops up here and there, I'll bet on it. But for me, mainly the fantasy scores. If you guys have any questions about any other ones, feel free to leave it in. But that's pretty much what I got for today. Want to touch on some core picks, add a little bit of prize picks just real quick too, looking through some of those fantasy scores, talking through it real quick. But the 3 that I did like, probably the best, Jalen Williams, Paulo Banchero, and Andrew Wiggins over fantasy points for each of them. I'd run it out there as a three-man. I'd flex it out myself personally. If you really want to power play it yourself, you can definitely do that as well. But just want to thank everybody that did tune in for this stream. If you're not subscribed already, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to grow the channel, obviously, here at Coach Craig Sports. Talking a lot of NBA DFS at this point in time, doing some prize picks. As we get closer to the NFL draft season, we'll be talking a little bit of NFL draft content as well. When we get into baseball season, we'll be doing some MLB DFS, probably some prize picks for that as well. But definitely be sure to check out all the content. And if you are already subscribed and you haven't turned on the notification bell, or if you're a brand new subscriber, definitely hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any content in the future, whether it's a pre-recorded video or a live stream such as this. But once again, thank you guys for tuning in today. I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day. I really do truly appreciate you tuning in to the live stream for today.